Fascism is a complex and controversial political ideology that has had a significant impact on global history. Originating in early 20th century Europe, it has been the subject of extensive study and debate among scholars and political scientists. Fascism has left an indelible mark on world history, from the rise of totalitarian regimes in the early 20th century to its lingering presence in contemporary politics. In today's video, we'll be discussing this political ideology by first defining the concept of fascism and discussing where it originates from. We'll also discuss some of its characteristics and conclude by looking into the impact and legacy of fascism. So, subscribe now, and let's look into this controversial political ideology. To get started, let's first understand what fascism is. In its simplest form, fascism refers to a specific way of organizing a society or government ruled by a dictatorial control over lives of the people in that society. This regime allows for no dissent or disagreement with the government or its leadership. A number of scholars and articles have defined fascism as a far-right authoritarian and ultranationalist political ideology or movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation or race, and a strong regimentation of society and the economy. This ideology is also often opposed to anarchism, democracy, pluralism, egalitarianism, liberalism, socialism, and Marxism. In essence, experts agree that fascism is a mass political movement that emphasizes extreme nationalism, militarism, and the supremacy of the nation over the individual. This model of government stands in contrast to liberal democracies that support individual rights, competitive elections, and political dissent. In many ways, fascist regimes are revolutionary in nature, since they advocate for the overthrowing of existing systems of government and the persecution of political enemies. However, such regimes are also highly conservative in their championing of traditional values, while advocating for nationalism and being opposed to liberal democratic values. The term fascism is used broadly today, but it has very specific origins, rooted in a history of highly divisive and highly destructive European political movements. These movements arose in the era between World War I and World War II, and fundamentally changed the political nature of the European continent. Benito Mussolini, an Italian political leader, is often credited as the founder of fascism. In 1919, Mussolini, initially known for his revolutionary socialist ideologies, broke away from the socialist movement and formed the Fasci Italiani di Combattimento, or the Italian Combat Squads. This group, also known as the Black Shirts, used violence and intimidation against political opponents. In 1921, he founded the National Fascist Party, formalizing his movement. By 1922, Mussolini and his followers organized the March on Rome, which led to him being appointed prime minister. By 1925, he had dismantled democratic institutions and declared himself dictator, and established the first fascist state. Through Mussolini's rise to power, fascism gained traction in Italy and in Germany with the ascent of Hitler in the 1930s. Fascist movements also gained popularity in other countries, including in Spain, under Francisco Franco, as well as in Japan, under militarist leaders. Although fascist leaders typically claim to support ordinary men and women, in reality, these regimes often have characteristics that do not represent the masses, and sometimes aspire personal gain, and usually support private business interests. A political scientist, Dr. Lawrence Britt, conducted an in-depth study of various fascist regimes, including those led by Hitler in Germany, Mussolini in Italy, Franco in Spain, Suharto in Indonesia, and Pinochet in Chile, as well as several Latin American regimes. Through his research, Dr. Britt identified the following 14 characteristics that are commonly found in fascist leaders, their regimes, and movements. Let's unpack some of these characteristics. Dr. Britt found that Fascist regimes tend to make constant use of patriotic mottos, slogans, symbols, songs, and other paraphernalia. Flags are seen everywhere, including flag symbols on clothing and in public displays. Because of fear of enemies and the need for security, the people in fascist regimes are persuaded that human rights can be ignored in certain cases, because of need. The people then tend to look the other way, or even approve of torture, summary executions, assassinations, long incarcerations of prisoners, etc. Dr. Britt also identified that fascist regimes ensure that the people are rallied into a unifying patriotic frenzy over the need to eliminate a perceived common threat, or foe, which could be based on race, ethnic background, or religious affiliation. This may also extend to liberals, communists, socialists, terrorists, etc. Even when there are widespread domestic problems, the military, under a fascist regime, is allocated a disproportionate amount of government funding, and the domestic agenda is neglected. Soldiers and military service are also glamorized under fascist regimes. The research also found that governments of fascist nations tend to be almost exclusively male-dominated, with traditional gender roles made more rigid. Opposition to abortion is also high, along with an increase in homophobia and anti-gay legislation and national policy. Under fascist regimes, it often happens that the media is directly controlled by the government. However, in other cases, the media is indirectly controlled, either through government regulation or through sympathetic media spokespeople and executives. Censorship, especially in wartime, is also very common. There is also an unwarranted obsession with national security, where fear is used as a motivational tool by the government over the masses. Dr. Britt also identified that governments in fascist nations also tend to use the most common religion in the nation as a tool to manipulate public opinion. Religious rhetoric and terminology is common, from government leaders, even when the major tenets of the religion are diametrically opposed to the government's policies or actions. The industrial and business aristocracy of a fascist nation often are the ones who put the government leaders into power, creating a mutually beneficial business-to-government relationship and power elite. Due to the fact that the organizing power of labor is the only real threat to a fascist government, labor unions are either eliminated entirely or severely suppressed. Fascist nations also tend to promote and tolerate open hostility to higher education and academia. It is not uncommon for professors and other academics to be censored or even arrested. Free expression in the arts is usually openly attacked. Under fascist regimes, the police are given almost limitless power to enforce laws. The people are often willing to overlook police abuses and even forego civil liberties in the name of patriotism. There is also often a national police force, with virtually unlimited power, in fascist nations. Dr. Britt's research also identified that fascist regimes are almost always governed by groups of friends and associates, who appoint each other to government positions, and use governmental power and authority to protect their friends from accountability. It is also not uncommon in fascist regimes for national resources and even treasures to be appropriated, or even outright stolen, by government leaders. Elections in fascist nations are usually a sham, often manipulated by the regime to remain in power. In other instances, elections are manipulated by smear campaigns against, or even assassination of opposition candidates, or use of legislation to control voting numbers, or political district boundaries, and manipulation of the media. Fascist nations also typically use their judiciaries to manipulate or control elections. As indicated, these are the key characteristics of fascism, based on the study and research of political scientist Dr. Lawrence Britt. Other scholars have also held that fascism is also marked by characteristics such as authoritarianism. This is mainly evidenced by a strong, centralized state with a single charismatic leader. Nationalism, being an emphasis on national unity and national pride, and support of national interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Militarism, which is the glorification of the military, and the belief that a country should maintain a strong military capability and be prepared to use it aggressively to defend or promote national interests. Anti-democracy, which refers to the opposition to democratic institutions and practices. And lastly, propaganda, which is the dissemination of information, facts, arguments, rumors, half-truths, misleading information, misinformation, fake news, or even lies, to influence public opinion. In the next section, we'll discuss how fascism has impacted politics and the world, as well as its legacy. However, before we continue, we'd like to take a quick moment to ask for your support. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up by clicking that like button below. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on our latest content. Remember, hitting that subscribe button is free, and it shows us that you appreciate what we do. Now, let's discuss the impact and legacy of fascism. The impact of fascism has been profound, leading to the devastation under World War II and the brutal genocides brought on by the Holocaust. Its legacy continues to be felt in contemporary politics, with neo-fascist movements emerging in various parts of the world. Understanding fascism is crucial for preventing its resurgence and promoting democratic values. In conclusion, fascism is usually marked by several key characteristics such as authoritarianism, nationalism, militarism, anti-democracy, and propaganda. Fascism remains a contentious and multifaceted ideology that has shaped modern history. By understanding its origins, characteristics, and impact, we can be aware of the dangers it poses and work towards a more just and democratic world. Based on what you learned in this video, have you noticed any emergence of fascist tendencies in recent history? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Leave a comment below to join the conversation or share your own experiences and insights. For more on public administration and public finance, please take time to check out our other videos under this channel, where we discuss various topics relating to public administration, as well as public management and management of the public sector, including the running of government. Also remember to like this video to show your support and subscribe to our channel for more content. Kano Consultants. For professional advice you can trust.